Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name's Shirley Wood, and I'm chairing this first session. On behalf of the Jisc, I'd like to welcome you all to Networkshop 47 at Nottingham, Trent University. This is the second time that we've held Networkshop at this excellent venue. Can I say thank you to HPE Aruba and all the other sponsors for supporting this year's conference. We've got 38 exhibitors at Networkshop 47, and they're representing networks, cloud security and more. Please do make the most of your time between sessions to visit them. And you can collect Easter eggs and all sorts of other goodies. Exhibitor presentations and demos are also scheduled across the 3 days. That's during the breaks, lunch times and the drinks reception. The demo area can be found on the ground floor, and we'd encourage you to attend these interesting demonstrations and talks. Session times can be found in the main programme and also on the app if you've downloaded that. Exhibitors will also be running competitions throughout the conference, and the much anticipated prizes will be given out on the Thursday at the end of the main closing plenary. So make sure you do stay to the end. Networking drinks will be served in the exhibition area at 16:45. Another opportunity to meet the exhibitors and network with people. Following on from the drinks reception, the pub quiz, which will be hosted by IP Performance, will be another opportunity for you to meet exhibitors as well. So please do go to the IP Performance stand and sign up for that to make sure you get a ticket. Our popular lightning talks are taking place tomorrow morning at 11:45 here on the main stage. They tackle a topic of your own choice, and it's a 5-minute blitz. We're looking for people to sign up, so please go along to the reception area and sign up for that. And sign up in the speakers' corners to have your say on the speakers' corner stage within the exhibition. That's a new feature this year. And please do explore the exhibition and talk to us in the Jisc Lounge, and also go and see the strategy, the training surgery. And if we move to housekeeping, we've got no fire alarms scheduled in the event, and in the event of an alarm, please follow the directions of the NCC staff. Please switch your mobile phone to silent. Toilets, in case you haven't already discovered, are located on each level of the conference. And I've broken the technology already. That's better. I've mentioned IP Performance. And this year, we're also having a different idea for the questions and answers. We're using something called VVox. If you look in front of you, you've got a card in front of you that tells you the instructions. So everything will come up anonymous, and then we can just pick them up off the iPad. It's now my great pleasure to welcome Professor Edward Peck, who's the Vice-Chancellor of Nottingham Trent University. He was formerly an NHS manager and scholar of social sciences. And Professor Peck has been Vice-Chancellor of Nottingham Trent University since 2014. Under his leadership, the university started on the long journey of redefining what constitutes a 21st century university. In 2017, NTU was named the University of the Year. So can I welcome Professor Peck?
Shirley, thank you very much, and delegates, colleagues, good afternoon. It's great to be here. You always know you're at a Jisc conference when the chair of the session is using a very small machine from which to read her remarks. And you know it's the Vice-Chancellor when he's got bits of paper in his hand. He also has, well, the chocolate cream eggs. I recommend the stand. They're delightful people giving out the eggs. Unfortunately, one of the things you do as a Vice-Chancellor is go to inaugural lectures by your professoriate. And last week, there was one on obesity. That's true. And he asked us, actually using a quiz like the one you're going to use later, how many steps do you think you have to take to walk off a 2-bar Kit Kat? Have a guess. 10. If only. 3,000. 3,000 steps to walk of a 2-bar Kit Kat. This is a Cadbury's cream egg. It's a marathon, I'm suspecting. So I'm going to leave it here, and if whoever wants it can come and get it, because I've been put off. It's a great place to welcome you all to the Jisc Next Workshop 47, and welcome again to Jisc back to Nottingham Trent University. Jisc is a valued partner of the university, and Tim just reminded me about you were here in 2017 for your conference, and you liked it so much you're back already, and it's great to have you here on the university campus again. And we're also pleased to host the first meeting of the Jisc Learning Analytics Research Group in October of last year. Now, I think it's fair to say that NTU is regarded as one of the leading UK universities in the application of learning analytics, and I'm sure you've heard of our dashboard. This has enabled a step change in the use of data-driven, evidence-based approaches to inform personalised learning support and drive student engagement across the institution. Now, Shirley mentioned the Times for Education University Year in 2017. I will quote what they said about NTU in their citation for the award. It said, particularly demonstrated pioneering use of learning analytics and data-led approach, in particular to drive improvement strategies for how we engage with our students, particularly students from disadvantaged backgrounds, which is a particular priority here at NTU. 25% of our undergraduate students, UK students, come from households with a combined income of £15,000 or less, 25%. These are first-generation students, by and large, and our task is to transform their lives. We can only do that if they're still here. And what we know about Dashboard is the best indication of a student that's likely to leave is they don't engage. And Dashboard tells us right from the start how far our students are engaging with what we are doing with them. And our student manager, Ed Foster, who some of you will know, took part in a panel about learning analytics at the recent Jisc DigiFest. I think he's doing a workshop later today on the ethical use of learning analytics, so that should be worth listening to. Now, I've no doubt there are burning ethical issues that we must all address, but we've received continued support for our data analytics from our Students' Union, and indeed more broadly from our students across the university. And what surprised me, but perhaps shouldn't have surprised me and won't surprise you, is they make the point that engagement with digital platforms has resulted in them being segmented and targeted since their adolescence. Some of these young people have been experiencing this the last 7 or 8 years they come to us. And as their view is, as long as our approach is genuinely in their interests and not those of a third party, then they are content for us to have this data, share it with them and share it with their tutors and use it for other beneficial purposes. Clearly, we can't become complacent about that. We can't become presumptuous. We must use the data wisely. But it seems to me that we have an opportunity to work with this particular generation in ways which gives them confidence, hopefully, in our good intentions and our competence to manage their data. And I think Hannah Fry's presentation on how to be human in the age of the machine will touch on this very topic a little later. Now, our head of Libraries and Learning Resources, Mark Toole, is chair of one of the Jisc advisory groups about library systems. And again, the wider impact of technology is becoming manifest in our student experience. So we have more access now to e-books and e-journals than ever before. And I'm told last year our downloads of e-journals exceeded 2 million, and our views of e-books went up to over 10 million. And of course, all this data feeds into our learning analytics. So we know who's borrowing the material, we know therefore who's engaging with their subject. But the really interesting thing about those uses of e-resources is as the use of physical journals and books has declined, we've seen a massive increase in the footfall in our libraries. So what's happening as the world goes increasingly online and digital is students want to congregate in sacred physical spaces of scholarly activity in even larger numbers. They want to go somewhere people are like them engaging in a scholarly activity. And I think that's very, very telling, particularly when we've heard about the death of the campus university so much over the last 10 years. MOOCs, anyone? I think if we survive the book, the invention of the printing press, in the 16th century, we'll probably survive the invention of the World Wide Web. And if I'm wrong, by the time it happens, I'll be retired. But I do think we have confidence, actually, in this sense of the shared experience. Indeed, I'd argue that all of you could probably have the experience you're having at this conference, if it was simply about information, by staying in your office and looking at it online. That's not what conferences are for, is it? It's for networking, engaging with the community, and feeling part of something bigger. That's why people go to conferences. That's why students go to campus universities and why they go to libraries. Our challenge, actually, is not having sophisticated data on our case, dashboard. But if that's the easy bit. But if you don't have a universal one-to-one tutorial system in which these data can be deployed, or academics who have the time and the inclination to access the system, or the confidence and competence to have the conversation with a student that might be necessary, having the data, having the system is actually pointless. And our challenge is not the technology, it's the people. Now, this may be trite, but it's absolutely true about engaging academics in becoming personal tutors, as well as academic advisors to our students, and use the data that they can access through Dashboard. We've made great strides, to be fair to my colleagues, in the last 5 years, but we're not there yet. So you've got a packed programme with a stimulating line for speakers over the coming days. And as I say, most of your most interesting insights will be, I guess, talking to colleagues in the room and colleagues on the stands outside. So a Vice-Chancellor's introduction is just a way of taking up space before the really interesting stuff starts. So I think I fulfilled that particular role now. So I'm going to stop. Have a great conference. Enjoy NTU, enjoy Nottingham, and hope to see you again soon. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Edward. So an update for you all about the network and the work that we've been doing. Before I actually get into the main part of this, I want to say some of you may have seen the joint Jisc-HEPI security policy note that came out last week. This caused a lot of concern and comments from the sector, and I'm very sorry for the way that this happened. Our intent was positive and to support the sector in this very difficult area. And we should have involved the sector earlier, so that people were briefed and ready. So I'm sorry this didn't happen, and we're reviewing our processes to make sure we get this right in the future. But cybersecurity is clearly an area of interest to everybody, and rarely out of the news. We've been working with universities and colleges increasingly over the past 2 to 3 years or so to understand the issues and to provide tools and services to assist. The annual security conference is well attended, as any of you who go will know, and allows our members to discuss items of common interest. And if you are interested, then this year's is coming in November, so watch out for the announcements for it. And later in my presentation, I'll give you an overview of the security landscape as we see it, and a brief insight into the work that we're undertaking at the moment. If you'd like more details, then please do chat to any of our cyber security specialists that are here at Net Workshop. But now let's have a little look at what we've been doing with the network itself since we last met together last year at Net Workshop 46. If you want any more details, there are some network specialists around from Jisc. In fact, breaking the tradition, network folk from Jisc, please put your hands up. There's a few at the front there. John Seymour, put your hand up. And there's a few others around. They'll be really happy to have a chat with you if you've got any questions about what we're up to. So if we look at last year, and when we were here together, we had about 1.6 terabits of external connectivity to the rest of the world. We've done a little bit of work since then. And these numbers, if you just think back a few years, are quite bonkers, really, aren't they? Just thinking back a few years. So we're now at 2.2 terabits. We've got an additional 140 gig that connects us to Apple, another 100 gig on the main and the backup links to Géant, a third peering to Google at 100 gig, a third peering to Amazon at 20 gig, a new peering to Dropbox at 10 gig, Liberty Global at 10 gig, UK Cloud at 10 gig, and SWAN, the Scotland network for public sector activities, doubled bandwidth to 20 gig on the 2 peerings. So that's where we're at now, 2.2 terabits per second of external capacity. More work is on the go, so we expect shortly to get to 2.7 terabits. Increases are Amazon, where our 3 connections there will go from 20 gig to 100 gig. Telia Global in London, part of our global transit connectivity, will go from 2x40 to 2x100. And then a bit later in the year, as we move to our new global transit provider, CenturyLink in London, that will also go from 2x40 to 2x100, and in Manchester from 40 to 100. So that gets to 2.7 terabits. So your task is merely to use it all up. So keep going, keep going. We've also did some midterm upgrades. As many of you will know, we've been talking about this for a few years as to how we make sure that the network in the core meets your needs. And we've increased the part out to Bristol to 200 gig, the northern ring up to 400 gig, and then the core here to 600 gig. So that was all done over the last year. Some of that just as we were meeting last year and the rest over the last year. So again, another huge increase in bandwidth, the so-called midterm upgrade that we had planned in. And then we've also been updating and upgrading the connectivity that meets the regional needs. So we've got a whole pile of those. The Northwest region went to 100 gig, Yorkshire and Humberside since the last time we met, East Midlands to 100 gig, West Midlands to 100 gig, Thames Valley, the Southwest, the South, London to 2 times 100 gig. And then another connection into a data centre in Newport on the Wales Public Sector Broadband Aggregation Network, the PSBA, which gives us a second access into Microsoft Express Route. We've already been providing Microsoft Express Route services through other connections into their data centre in London, and we now have a connection through Wales, which allow us to give some resilience. We've currently got 12 organisations using Express Route through us in this way, and more on the list. And we've been looking at how we re-architect Janet for the access side of things. So we've shown you the core. The next question is, what are we doing about the access out to universities and colleges and research centres? So we have this 4-year programme where we're upgrading and re-architecting access in most regions across the UK. We're trying to do a number of things with this. We're trying to make it more flexible so we can more quickly adapt to the things that you need to do. We're trying to reduce the running costs, but also provide more services. And we're moving to a position where we will be lighting the fibre ourselves all the way through so that we're able to give you much more quickly, more services. So in the build at the moment, the south, southwest, and parts of the northwest, we're working on those right now. And then on the design side, we've got Midlands, where East and West Midlands that were separate regional networks will become one. And then London, Scotland, and East Anglia work going on to design those. Now, it might be worth just thinking a little bit about what advantages there might be with this work that we're doing. So here is the current southwest layout. So you just see where we've got our southwest infrastructure to. And in designing what we do for the southwest, reducing some cost and increasing the bandwidth and increasing the coverage, this is what we will get to. So I think that really is going to improve what we can do in that area. And so quite a lot of work's gone on. There's been a huge amount of work from our teams to work out how we do this, what it means, and how we put it all together. But they're rushing along, so it's looking good. So I hope that gives you just a flavour of why we're doing them. And also, some of you may have been to the Tech talks that we've been having around the UK to talk about what we're up to and what's going on. When I first started working on Janet, one of the first things I was doing was monitoring as we removed the old SMDS, anybody here remember SMDS, at 10 megabits per second core connections across the country. And we've gone on quite a long way since then. To be fair, that is 21 years, but even so, it's still quite a lot that we've moved on. And now we're talking about connecting endpoints at 100 gig, just as if it's something that you just do every day, really. So we've got STFC Rutherford Appleton Laboratory connected at 100 gig, and Imperial College since we last gathered together. And on the go at the moment, there are 2 more 100 gig connections going into endpoints for the National Supercomputer Archer at Edinburgh and Manchester University. So 100 gig is now the normal 10 gig as far as I can see. 10 meg, sorry, as far as I can see. So there's lots of stuff been going on across the network over the last year. In terms of cybersecurity, now we've got some cybersecurity folk here today, so you know what's coming, cybersecurity folk. From the Jisc cybersecurity folk, put your hands up so you can be identified. So there's a few of them around. They've given some talks and things as well, so please do say hello to them. If you've got any questions of detail, they'll be more than happy to answer the questions, I'm sure. So a little bit about some of the things that we're seeing at the moment. So if you look at the security incident trends. So first off, it won't surprise anybody that phishing is on the increase. There's the number of phishing reports that we've had over the last few months, and they're absolutely increasing. So quite a lot of that going on. That's not a surprise. We see it all the time. We've got a large number of alleged copyright infringement notices that we see. So we've done a bit of work on that. It's the largest category we get. There's lots of those that come in. And so now we have been working on automating that, so it's easier to handle that sort of level, that number of things that come in. And malware is also on the increase, and there is a need, I think, for some folk to focus on anti-malware provision and patch management processes to make sure it really is going well. DDoS is always an interesting issue. The attacks keep coming. That's not a surprise. There are some statistics. We saw a really big spike in January of this year. You can see that really big spike there. But it's not just the amount of gigabits per second we're seeing, it's the number of packets per second, the millions of packets per second as well, those sorts of attacks. Both sorts of attacks are causing problems. We've also been doing some work on penetration testing. We've been to 50 HEIs in the last 18 months. There's a few things worth saying. Quite a lot of the stuff about legacy and bespoke systems, particularly in devolved departments. Many of you who are working for some central IT folk might resonate with this. Often areas that are more easily breached, so bringing those into the same systems of patching and so on is really useful. We've seen lots of vulnerabilities that we found in common systems such as HR systems or VLEs. We've fed those back to the vendors who've then actually responded with fixes. So that's really good bit of powerful stuff we can do as a sector together to make sure that people take notice of us. We've also provided the IT teams that we visited with some free tools and helped them with some information about how they can improve the level of protection for themselves, which they've been picking up really well. Francis and Charlotte, who manage this, are here today, and they'll be very happy to take any questions that you might have. In terms of new areas of work that are coming up, we're doing a bit more on cybersecurity assessment. Now, this is working on this wider security assessment that looks at building defences rather than testing them. So it's providing support in teams to help remediate the issues that they see immediately, but also to build up in-house expertise to stop them from happening. And it's looking at the management frameworks and the board responsibilities for cyber risk and resilience, not just a test of the technical controls. So to make sure that the whole of your organisation is better able to cope. We've done an audit for CERN, and that's now finished. That worked really, really well. We're working with 2 UK universities at the moment to look at that. We've also looking at the off-site resolver service that builds threat intelligence feed for DNS filtering so we can better protect people. And we're enhancing our ability to provide more forensics capability when we're looking at incident responses. The 2019 Cybersecurity Posture Survey will be launched next week, I think, rather than now. So do get a chance to have your say and tell us the things that are causing you angst or that we could together work on. And on the DNS infrastructure side, we've done quite a lot of work on the DNS infrastructure. We've hardened it and we've investigated and implemented DNS RPZ. If you're interested, then Mark Siddle, our Chief Security Analyst for Cybersecurity Threat Intelligence, is talking on a parallel session at 2 o'clock on Wednesday. So do find him and have a chat. Then the last thing I wanted to pick up on this front is about DNS Flag Day. Some of you doubtless got involved with DNS Flag Day. Many people will know that the current DNS systems are viewed as being a bit slow and inefficient because they're accommodating old, out-of-date systems which cause some problems. And we noted that we checked on all our name servers for compliance. That's really good. In checking everything across Janet as a whole, all of our members, there were 277 domains that failed their compliance test across 59 institutions. And they were all solved. People solved that really well. We did offer some help and helped some people out, and some people got on and just did stuff really well. So all of those got sorted out before the DNS changes took place. And we used our security team, our domain name team, our service desk, and our network operations center all helping people out. So that's a really good bit of work. Just to note, there's more changes to come next year on DNS. Or this year, presumably now. This year, this calendar year. So keep an eye out for that. There'll be more stuff to come on DNS across the world. So that was a very, very swift flick through some of the stuff that we're up to and been up to since the last time that we met together. So the question is whether there's been any questions about any of that before we move on.
So if anybody wants to put up their hand instead and ask a question.
Do find us and
Otherwise,
talk to us.
Tim's here for the next couple of days, so
great.
you can always
And if you want a real answer, then the experts are around as well, so do talk to them. Okay, thank you.